Welcome back to Drinks and Dunks. I'm your host, Ben Marquardt. On today's show, we got kind of a switch up again, like we've been doing. Not just the picks today. We're going to overview the landscape of the league, see which teams are disappointing, see how the standings are looking, and kind of project forward, seeing who we think is legit and actual contender, and who we think is a little bit of a mirage here early on in the season. So we'll take a look at that. But first, we're going to go over the beer we're drinking today. Another request, not exactly the right beer we were looking for, but it's the right brand. And that would be the Brewing Project's the Stolen Mile. Got some beautiful artwork, kind of a matte can. Feels really good. Looks really cool. A little bit pricey, but it's a golden ale with lemon, basil, and lemongrass. And let's give it a taste. Very smooth, very smooth. Golden ale's a lot different than the Doppelbock we had last week. Shout out to Luke. Shout out to Brandon, one of my buddies, for requesting the Brewing Project. Sorry we couldn't find the exact style you wanted, but thought we'd give the Brewing Project a chance. And at first glance, the Golden Ale is a really light, very easy drinking beer, which is good because I'm gonna have to have some chugging again in a little bit here. But just to go over it and maybe give it a rating and a comparison, I think I'm gonna give it probably 8.1, just because there's not a ton of flavor there. Very subtle lemony flavor with the basil and the lemongrass. But it's really smooth, just an easy drinking beer. A bit pricey for what we're drinking, but still a really solid beer. Just not as much flavor as the last one. So I'm going to give it an 8.1, but it's something I would definitely have, 3 or 4 when we're cooking out in the summer. Nice, easy beer. Comparison maybe would be like a JJ Redick or a Kyle Korver. Just a nice, easy shooting stroke, just a complete pure shot. Somebody that's just like, he's not gonna take over your team. He's not your first, second, or third option, but he can take over some games. Maybe in the playoffs or something, gets hot, hits a few threes. So that's the comparison I'm going with here. Looking back at last week's picks, I had the Jazz -4 against the KD-less Nets. That one, kind of a blowout right from the start. The Nets got out to a huge first quarter lead. I think Kyrie had 18 in the first quarter, couldn't miss, and that, kind of stayed consistent throughout the game. I ended up winning by over 30. A Jazz team that was favored, that I thought could take care of business against the Nets without KD. But way wrong on that one. And this next game will just show you how wild betting's been this year. The favorite Jazz, they were favored by 4.5. I took them. They lost by 30-some. I took the upset in the Spurs plus 9.5 against the Clips. Actually, when I did the bet, I took the money line, which was plus 330. Parlayed it with this to get like plus 800 odds. The Spurs actually ended up winning this game against the Clippers. They were plus 330, and the Jazz lost by 30 when they were favored. So that just shows you how wild betting's been. So I went 1 for 1 this week. That brings us on the season to 4-6. Been mulling over the season and thinking of punishments and rewards. And I think we're going to, at the All-Star break, we're going to see what our record is. If we're over 500, we're going to have a treat, one of my favorite beers or something I'll unveil that week. And if I don't get it, I'm going to have to chug or shotgun a pretty nasty beer. So that's going to be the reward system we're working with here. But 1-1, so I got a 5 seconds of chug. Here we go. See, that is a super easy beer to chug. goes down so smooth. I could imagine smashing a ton of these in a hot sunny day sitting by the pool. Yeah, so we're gonna look ahead to where we are now. We're gonna bring up the standings here. We're gonna run through the teams quick, and then I'm gonna say who I think are gonna be the top 6 teams in each conference that aren't gonna be in the play-in tournament. Because this year they got the play-in tournament where it's seeds 7 through 10 will play each other to get those last 2 seeds in each conference. So 7 will play 10, 8 will play 9, and then that'll determine who the 7 and 8 seed are going on. So I'm just going to pick the first 6 that I think are going to be the top 6. I'm not necessarily going to give super specific orders, but kind of how I see it playing out. First, we got the Magic at 7-1, Sixers, 76ers at 7-1, Magic at 6-2, Pacers at 6-2, Celtics at 6-3, Knicks at 5-3. It's a bit of a surprise there. Bucks at 5-3, and then we got the Cavs, Nets, Hawks at 4-4, Bulls at 4-5, Heat at 3-4, Hornets at 3-5, Wizards at 2-6, Raps at 1-6, and Pistons at 1-7. So I think the biggest surprises so far: the Magic at 6-2, Knicks at 5-3, the Cavs at 4-4. And so I don't think those teams are necessarily for real. I think you'll see this every year where some bad teams will get out to hot starts and people get all excited, which they should. I mean, if you're a fan of that team, by all means, get super excited. That's great. However, I don't think it's going to last. I do think that the Magic will make the play-in tournament. I think they could be the 7 or 8 seed. I do think they're competent. They're good coach. They have a good coach. But I don't see them getting in that top 6 spot. Knicks, I think it's a bit of a mirage. Tibbs has these guys playing an insane number of minutes in the 40s, and they lead the league in minutes. So I think he's pushing these guys really hard. I think it's a bit of a mirage. So my 6 that I think are going to make the playoffs, or make the top 6 seeds. I got the Sixers. They started hot. They look really good. I got the Pacers. Kind of the same thing with them. Oladipo looks pretty much close to where he was. And then I got the Bucks, Nets, and Heat. So kind of went chalk here. I think the Heat started a little slow, and I do anticipate the Heat being that 6th seed, just because I don't think that they're as good as they were in the bubble. And then I think I have the Nets fighting with the Pacers for that 4 or 5 spot, just because I think with KD being out, with them struggling recently, I do think they're going to have their bumps this season. I think they're going to be really dangerous, but I don't envision them being a top 4 seed, or a top 3 seed. They'll be the 4 seed, sorry. And then I got the Celtics at the 3 seed. I think Tatum and Brown have been phenomenal this season. Everyone's rehashed that. So I think that'll carry them to the 3 seed. I do have the 76ers as a 2 seed. I've been really impressed with how they've played so far, but I do think that the Bucks will end up having the best record in the East. And you can call me a homer or whatever, but I think they're starting to click, and their offense has just been phenomenal this year. Best offensive rating in the league. Looking over at the West, we got the Suns at 6-2, the Lakers at 6-2, Clippers at 6-3, Warriors, Jazz, Pelicans, Kings at 4-4, Blazers, Mavs, Nuggets, Spurs, Thunder at 3-4, Rockets 2-4, and then Timberwolves and Grizzlies at 2-5. I think once you get past the top 3, I do think that it's going to be such a close cluster of groups, just like it was the last couple of years, from that 4 to that 11-12 spot. A few outliers here. More towards the bottom of the conference, we have the Mavs, the Nuggets, the Spurs. Well, mostly just the Mavs, Nuggets, and Blazers at 3-4. I think those guys are the real outliers. And I think the Rockets will end up getting a little better. I'm not sure if James Harden is actually going to get traded this year. I think, it probably still will happen, but a lot depends on that. So the 6 teams that I have coming, being the top 6 in the West, are the Suns, Lakers, and Clippers. And I do think those 3 will have the best records in the West. And then I think the Jazz are going to turn it around. They've been in a little bit of a slump right now, but they're still 4-4, sitting in that 5 seed right now. And then I do think the Mavs and the Nuggets are going to turn it around and figure it out, just because Luka and Jokic are so good. The Mavs might be that 6th seed just because who knows when Kristaps is going to come back and how healthy he's going to be. But I do think the Nuggets will figure out how to play some sort of defense a little bit better. And they always have the opportunity to make a big trade too with all their young assets and picks. Rounding out the play-in tournaments for each team, I do think that the Hawks are going to make the play-in tournament in the East. The Magic are going to make the play-in tournament in the East. The Raptors will get in there. They've really struggled to start, but I think they'll turn it around. And then that last play-in spot, the 10 spot's so hard to predict, but I think it'll be one of the Knicks, the Cavs, or the Bulls, just because they've been so scrappy early and they have a lot of young talent that is really going to push for that last spot. Looking over at the West play-in teams, I think I have the Warriors, the Pelicans, the Rockets, and the Blazers, rounding out those 4 for the play-in spots. I do think that the Warriors are a lot better than we kind of saw in that first week or two. Draymond just totally transforms their team, and you've seen in the last few games just how important he is, even when he's not scoring the ball. He's one of the most important leaders, not just on that team, but in the league, and just a tremendous passer and decision maker on the court. Pelicans, I think they have enough top-end talent, kind of like the Thunder last year, to be competitive and squeak into that 8 or 9 spot in the West. And then I had the Blazers, once again, just Lillard and McCollum. They'll be in there. Their defense is so bad right now that I'm not sure if they're going to get in the top 6, and right now I don't have them in the top 6. And yeah, so that's just a look at the standings right now. A long way to go. We're only 8 games in for most teams, but that's just a look ahead, see where we're at. And yeah, thanks for showing up, guys. Make sure to subscribe, keep telling your friends. I really enjoy doing this for everyone, and make sure to leave more suggestions for beers. Once again, shout out to Brandon. Brewing Project's a really solid beer. I definitely buy this again and would recommend to anyone who's looking for a super easy to drink. So, thanks guys. Cheers.